Thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Randy. We're so excited to get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
It's my pleasure. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Dr. Randy Overbeck. I'm a veteran educator, a speaker, and an author. I have served children for almost 4 decades as a teacher, a college professor, and a school leader. I'm now devoting my full time to writing, and I'm here to talk about the fifth of my novels that are being released in October of 23.
Amazing. I would love if you could tell us what your book's about that's coming out.
The book that's coming out is Cruel Lessons. I've got an advanced copy, so here's what it looks like. It is an atmospheric amateur sleuth mystery set in schools. My background is education, about a rogue hallucinogenic drug that some middle schoolers get their hands on, crash a car and die. The mystery is about trying to uncover who's pushing drugs into the middle school and stop the drug pusher before more kids die from the experience. All of the characters in the book are all from the world of school. Janitors, teachers, board members, principals, everybody you could think of is involved as either a good guy or a bad guy in the book. Also, the book it's different. It takes place in 1994. I chose that date deliberately because those who are not involved with school won't know this, but that was at a particularly critical time when we had some rather tepid attempts to control drug use by students called Just Say No and Dare. So it fits with the whole message about trying to stop students from abusing drugs fits very neatly in that context of that time, that decade, at least, put it that way.
Amazing. What inspired you to write your book?
Believe it or not, I have had this book. This is one of those books that you'll hear an author say has been in my drawer for almost 20 years. The initial skeleton of the book, the basic plot line, the basic storyline, I actually invented in the late 90s. And it has been sitting there waiting. Actually, it's been through probably untold number of revisions, untold number of editing. Characters have changed and stuff, but essentially the story is essentially the same thing. And it is it's taken, even though it's all fiction, it's taken from real things that I saw happen in schools. The basic premise of the book is about the battle in schools between what's best for kids and what's best for everybody else, whether that be adults or politics or the community or something like that. So I saw that battle go on repeatedly during my years in school, and I thought it would be a good way to kind of give an interesting take on how that affects children and how that affects what happens in schools.
Amazing. When writing your book, who are you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
Well, I think what I'm hoping is that the vast majority of people who have experience in public school, and based on readers' responses to my earlier book set in school, they will find a very common um, background with what they know in terms of when they were in middle school or what went on between students and adults in that particular time. So I'm hoping that I can find an audience, first of all, with people that experience. It is primarily an amateur sleuth mystery. So I'm hoping to capture those people who like to see if they can solve the whodunit before the author does. So that's kind of a key to that. And I'm hoping that there will be those who will be won over because of the message of the book, because of this message about the importance of serving youth and trying to do everything you can to protect them, even in the face of like an onslaught of drugs like we have now. It is unabashedly an attempt to have a metaphor for what's happening now. I deliberately didn't want to set it today with the opioid crisis, but I thought that people who gravitate to that would be able to see a parallel in this imaginary drug that was supposed to be out in the 1990s that would give kids similar experiences to LSD, only far more powerful. So I think I'm hoping that it catches audience's eyes that way.
Love that. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
I've been writing my whole life. When I was in high school, I did have a dream in high school of becoming a full time author and writing the great American novel. Um, but right towards the end of high school and early college, the draw to serve children as a teacher hit me, and I was taken with that. So I spent most of my adult life doing that, serving kids in those various capacities, a teacher, a coach, or assistant superintendent or superintendent. But I never lost my desire to write. Now, the one good thing is, if you're outside the industry, you don't know this, but a large portion of your job as a teacher and then especially as administrator is writing. So all that time, my skills were continuing to be honed. I had to write newsletters. I had to write things that appeal to the public. So I kind of got a sense of how to do the writing in a way that would appeal to the largest audience when we were doing a levy or anything like that. And then when I had time near the end of my career, I decided that I wanted to start devoting more time to my first love, which was fiction. So I began starting writing, taking a few steps, writing some short stories and things like that. And then eventually, when I was able to really finish my career, my first novel was actually released the same year that I retired in 2011. Since then, it's just kind of been a continuous process, one story after another. I had the first standalone, then I had the trilogy, and then this new book, Cruel Lessons, which is the first of a new series that's coming out.
Love that. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
I have heard lots of authors will talk about that they have a target of X number of words per day, or they have a certain time. My life doesn't lend to that. My wife is handicapped. I have a lot of personal responsibilities that involve doctor's appointments and PT and all kinds of stuff. But I'm very blessed because I've learned that I can write anywhere. You give me 15 minutes, and I got my laptop, and I'm cranking out a page or two. I'm sitting there waiting for my car to be worked on. I'm sitting there when my wife is going through her PT. I'm waiting for the doctor because he's taking too long when I'm sitting in the doctor's office. All of those things are opportunities for me to write. I do most days, not every day. I most days write in the late morning. I like to write between, I don't know, 9 and noon about. Uh, my hat's off to people who can do that all day. But for me, I have found that after a certain couple of hours, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, what I start putting on a page really isn't as good as I would like it to be. So I have to step away for a while. I'll often do 2 sessions a day, but it will never, I'll never be a Stephen King who gets up in the morning, starts writing at 7, and he's still writing at 7 o'clock. I can't do that. I found that my best writing occurs in spurts of a couple of hours at a time. And since I don't have any, and I'm not trying to put out a book a year or anything like that, the pace is more about trying to produce the best product I can rather than getting this book done by X amount of time. Even though I do always have a long range goal, I'd like to finish this book by X time. It doesn't always happen, and I'm flexible with that, but it kind of keeps me moving.
Love that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
Well, um, as I mentioned, I can write in lots of conditions and lots of situations. As long as I don't have a lot of distraction going on around me, noise doesn't bother me. Talking does. I do if I'm lucky enough and I'm in a condition where I can control it. I like to have music on, and I have very eclectic taste. I like all kinds, but any of the music has to be without words. So I like techno. I like classical. I like smooth jazz. I like regular jazz. I like movie things. But they have to be. I like new age, but it has to be things that are not distracting me. If I have those conditions, those are my. I don't have to have those conditions, but those are our premier conditions. All what do I have to have? You said to write. If I'm sitting with my laptop and I've got a little controlled space around myself, uh, I'm good to go.
Love that. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
I don't really do that. I know a lot of people like to have their coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker, so that does not. And it depends on the time of year. In the wintertime, I'll do hot tea. If I'm happen to be drinking in the evening, I'll often have a little cocoa. But other than that, I don't. I will confess to a sweet tooth. So my diet does not allow me to do this. But when I can, if I can get a favorite pastry and I have that with some hot tea, that's kind of like that's a primo morning. And I'm writing. That's kind of I'm living the dream, as they say.
Love that. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
Well, my tastes are fairly eclectic. I'm actually reading a erotic chick lit right now. Um, I read mysteries, of course, a great deal of mysteries. I really like historicals. My newest project that I'm working on is a historical myself, and I've learned a lot from them. I read a little bit of sci-fi every once in a while. I like a lot of thrillers. Um, I don't know if what else have I? I'm not really a fantasy guy. I don't really. I'm not. Even though people kind of are surprised because the most recent books, my trilogy, they're a paranormal mystery. So they're involved with ghosts, but they aren't really fantastical. They're really very realistic about ghosts. So when you kind of go off in the fantasy realm, I'll go there some. Um, I love the Outlander series, and but if you know that series, the time travel piece is just a little tiny part of the story. It's not the story. So when the fantasy pieces become the major focus of the story, then they kind of lose me.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Yes, I without a doubt. Some of my When I was a young kid, I read like everybody else. I read Edgar Allan Poe. I read Agatha Christie. Those kinds of things. I read thrillers. I read Lee Child even early on. Um, and I read other authors, and I don't want to do this in a way that sounds self-congratulatory, but I started going, I can write better than that. I said, I think I can turn the phrase, I can craft dialogue that is more realistic that people will be able to respond to better. Now, I'll be the first to admit there are others that are far better storytellers than I am. I've learned that there are people who are not very good writers, if you would analyze their prose, but they are fantastic storytellers. Robert Ludlum comes to mind. Robert Ludlum, if you're a Robert Ludlum fan, that's the Born Identity that had done all the movies and stuff on. His writing is okay. His dialogue is absolutely horrible. You go, people would never talk that way, but his story is so captivating you don't even notice it if you're not analyzing it. So those kinds of experiences early on kind of got me started, kind of got um, my blood boiling, going. I think I could probably do that. Um, my first book was actually started because I was angry at somebody and I wanted to make them a villain. So they become, not them, but a reasonable facsimile thereof became one of the villains in my story. So those are the kind of things that got me excited. But William Kent Kruger, when I read his first books, I don't know if you're familiar. William Kent Kruger is a best-selling mystery writer from northern Minnesota who has 19, I think, or 19 books in his series, the Corcocano series, and he's won the Edgar, which is the top mystery writer of the year award. Um, when I first met him, he's the one that inspired me because he was working full time, and at that point, I think he had, I don't know, 4 or 5 books out. And I asked him, "How do you do this?" And he said, I got to work full time, and I have a family. He said, I get up and I go to this coffee house, and I work from 7 to 8:30 every day. That's how I create my books. I'm going, I can do that. I can find a way to squeeze that time in. So that inspired me, and I've been off since then.
Love that. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
That is a really good question. I don't know that I have an all-time favorite. Um, I grow up reading. I grew up in a household where I am one of 7 brothers. Um, and all of the well, my oldest brother has passed, but all the brothers have been very successful. Almost all of them went to college, though, but none of them were big readers. Some of them were big comic book readers. That really never excited me that much. I read some of the classics, as I mentioned before, some Agatha Christie. I was a big Sherlock Holmes fan early on. Um, and I actually started really developing my love for reading when I was just finishing high school. And what captivated me was another historical called Winds of War by Herman Wouk, a story about World War One. It was I was absolutely fascinated. So I guess that would probably, if you had to say it from my youth, what's one book that I would pull that I remember? That's probably the one I'd remember the most.
Love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Well, the first two authors that come to mind that I love are William Kent Kruger. In fact, I'm reading his latest, at his 19th in the Cork O'Connor series right now. C.J. Box is a close second. C.J. Box is a mystery writer that writes stories about Montana and Wyoming and that part of the country. I'm a big fan of Nevada Barr. I don't know if you know Nevada Barr is, but she writes. She she was one of the ones that gave me the inspiration. Most mystery writers, like William Kent Kruger, who's absolutely fantastic, set their mysteries in basically the same place. Um, as I mentioned, William Kent Kruger does North Minnesota, and C.J. Box does Wyoming, Montana. Nevada Barr is something altogether different. She has a series in which her protagonist is a national park ranger, and each story takes place at a new national park. So she has the park ranger get reassigned, from the Natchez to the one to the Great Smoky Mountains, all these different parks out west, and each one carries a different. And she's really good at capturing the surroundings around stuff like that. Those are some of my favorites. The thriller category. My favorites would be probably Joseph Finder, John John Gilstrap, Lee Child. In the history category, I love historicals by Ken Follett. If people haven't read his historical, starting with Pillars of the Earth, they're just incredible. Gore Vidal is one of my favorite. He has great historicals as well. And as I mentioned, Herman Wouk. Those are some of the ones that. Now, do I buy their art as soon as they come out? Some can't. Yes, as soon as I can get it. The others, kind of. One of the things I don't have as much time to read as I would like because I'm so busy writing and marketing like this.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Well, that's a really important question. I read recently in some of the research I did that 24% of Americans haven't read a book in the last year, which is a staggering figure. And then when you drill down, there's even some other worse things about that. Not very many people are actually enjoying books the way they used to. Now, I get it because there are so many other things that pull at their time and other ways they can spend reading, like Twitter and all those other things. But what I think is that if somebody was saying, I think I'd like to do this, I'd say, well, first of all, find something that you really would like to learn about. Are you excited about how police handle things? Are you excited about learning a certain part of the country? Are you excited about learning about a certain part of history? What things intrigue you? Would you like to learn about what happened with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln? Something along those lines. And then do your research to find some really great books on that category. I would assume, whether they are a reader or not, they have preferred genres. They're either romantic, they like romance, or they're a science fiction nerd, or they love thrillers. Or so then the other case is then you combine those two together. Well, I would like to read about out west, the beautiful area out west, and I want to read a mystery. Well, if you put those things in the search engine, C.J. Box's name is going to come up. Or maybe they want to read the Walt Longmire series. The other thing is that the other suggestion that I would have, if they are not a regular reader and they are playing with the possibility of doing that, my guess is they're a regular viewer. They have watched a lot of TV, whether streaming or classic, And if they have a favorite series that they would like, they might be surprised to find that behind most of those famous series, or many of them, there are even far better books. So I've seen all the Walt Longmire series that was originally on AMC. I don't remember now, but it's on Netflix, I think now. And I had not read his books, and then when I picked up his books, I found that their books are so much richer, so much funnier. Now that when you read this, when you see the series, there's some humor in the series, but it's not really a comedy. The books are rife with humor, sometimes pathetic humor because of the situations are bad. So there are things that they'll get in the book that would go far beyond what they would get in a movie or a TV series. Once they start that, they'll go, "Oh, okay, great, yeah, let's do that." So,
Amazing. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
well, I'm a mentor to a number of emerging writers, and when they come to me and ask me, well, you know, what advice do you have for me? I usually give them two things if they're just getting started. The first is if they have not yet been to a writing conference, they need to find a writing conference that's relatively close to them and attend. I've been to writing conferences in Chicago, in Indiana, in Nashville, Tennessee, in Florida, and I can honestly say that I learned a lot from all of those conferences. And what happens is they start finding out and connecting with people who are like themselves. They're just starting to write. They'll get some mentors that they hadn't really expected they would get. They'll find out that the really great writers, the ones that are world famous, are incredibly nice and supportive and will help them. So they'll get a lot out. In addition to, they'll learn the craft, they'll learn the idea about marketing, all those other things. The other suggestion that I give them is if they're not already, get connected to a writers group. I belong to a really great writers group. It's called the Dayton Tuesday Evening Writers Group. We don't meet in Dayton and we don't meet on Tuesday anymore, but we still have the same name. The pandemic changed all that, but they are wonderful at giving me feedback as I write the book. They give me both support. Oh, keep doing this. I like this. And then they give me feedback on things that are maybe not as good as they could. I think this is it's important for everybody, but it's really important for an emerging writer because the problem an emerging writer doesn't know what they don't know. And they need to get even as a writer, your work is not really solitary. You've got to have a team around you to be able to give you feedback. Otherwise, you'll never know what's good and what's not good about what you wrote.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think, well, one of the things that they're generally surprised about the fact that I come from such a huge family. So I have six brothers, about 40 cousins or 40 nieces and nephews. Um, and for many, many years, we got together every year, every other year. There would be 60 of us at a family reunion. We're kind of a little bit past that now, but that's one aspect that they are surprised to learn about me. Um, I don't know. I'm a pretty boring guy overall, but I'm not creating villains and interesting plots and systems. Um, I've been married to my wife for 50 years. I got three kids, seven grandchildren spread all over three different states. That's about it. I think I don't know that that's that interesting, but hey,
Love it. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
I, yes, I like to tell when you know I have often been asked. First of all, I should have said this when we were talking about a new writer. If you think you're going to go into writing because you want to make money, you have the wrong choice. You should only be doing this if you love it. If you don't love it, then you're in the wrong business because the number of people who actually make any real money is actually very small percentage. Um, and I've shared this in I do a lot of talks around the country. I do talks about ghosts, talks about publishing, and I've often asked this question and I go through and I'm kind of candid about, well, have you made a lot of money? I'm going, no. I said if I'm lucky, I'll break even. That's kind of my hope. And they said, well, why do you do this? And I said, here's what I relate to them, and I love this story. So I was at one of these places, and the guy came up to me and he went, I got a bone to pick with you. I went, okay. What'd I do? He said, I did not get any sleep last night. I said, well, what's the problem? He said, I started reading your book and I couldn't put it down. That's why I write, to get that kind of response.
Love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your books? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option? And the best place to connect with you?
Yes. The best way to get my books are on my website, which is real simple, is www.authorrandyoverbeck.com. So, and on those, with whatever book that you're interested in, if they're interested in my new book, Cruel Lessons, available everywhere October 11th, or if they're interested in the trilogy that preceded before them, called The Haunted Shore Mysteries, all of those books are available on the web. I have a universal link for each one of them, which means you can go to the book and pick, I want to buy Barnes & Noble, I want to buy Kobo, I want to buy it at Apple, I want to buy it at Amazon, and all of those links are there available for them to purchase. If they wish a autographed copy, just have them contact me via the website, and I'll be happy to take care of that. That happens often. I often ship books out to people who want that, and it is true. Autographed copies will be worth a fortune someday, so it's well worth that. If they wish to contact me, they can catch me on by email, and the email is just Randy Overbeck at authorrandyoverbeck.com, which is also, they can get a link on the website, or they can catch me on Twitter. I'm at Overbeck Randy, on Instagram, author Randy Overbeck, or on Facebook, author Randy Overbeck. All of those things, if they connect with me, I'll respond back to them, and I would be delighted to hear what they think.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. And again, thank you so much.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.